America leads the world in chronic diseases and obesity, and studies are pointing the finger at processed foods. So today, RFK and his team at HHS took their boldest step yet to confront America's chronic health crisis. Watch.
Today, the FDA is taking action to remove petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply and from medications. For the last 50 years, American children have increasingly been living in a toxic soup of synthetic chemicals.
Food dye is just a no-brainer. Nobody wants to eat petroleum. Everybody knows there's enough science out there that we know it's terrible for you. That causes health problems, but also behavioral problems. Healthy person has 1,000 dreams. The sick person only has one. And right now, there's 60% of the people in this country who have only one dream. If they can make it through a day without pain, with energy, without having to take medications. And we are going to change that for our country.
What are these food dyes actually doing to kids especially?
Yeah, well, if you look at the ingredients for Fruit Loops 20 years ago, it was very, very different than it is today. And today we use chemicals in Fruit Loops that are banned in virtually every country in the world. So if you buy Fruit Loops today in Canada, it is made with vegetable dyes. If you buy it here in the United States, it's made with petroleum synthetics. And as I said in that clip, nobody wants to eat petroleum. So when we went to meet with the food companies, I said to my staff, you know, if they want to eat petroleum, they should put it in their food themselves at home. They shouldn't be feeding it to Americans who, without their knowledge, without their consent. And today we announced that we're going to get it out of the food. So there are 9 dyes, Jesse. 2 of them we're going to ban immediately, orange bee and red dye 2. We're going to accelerate the removal of red dye 3. So we're going to bring it down to under a year. And the other 6 dyes, within 18 months, we hope to get them out of all the food. And that's just the beginning. I mean, one of the problems is that the science about these additives has been systematically suppressed for 30 years because the industry has been running this agency. And we're getting rid of all of those conflicts. We've gotten rid of most of them. And we're going to do real science. And we're going to do science precisely on the issues that Americans care about, making sure their kids are getting food that isn't poison. The food our kids are eating today is not really food. It's food-like substances. And some of it was made in petroleum refineries. And we need to give our kids real food again. We've got the highest chronic disease burden of any country in the world. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans had chronic disease. Today, it's 60%. 74% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. We have fertility rates that are just spiraling. A teenager today, an American teenager, has less testosterone than a 68-year-old man. Sperm counts are down 50%.
Wait, so
girls are
an
hitting
American
puberty 6 years
teenager
early.
has less testosterone than a 60-year-old man?
That's right, because the testosterone levels have dropped 50% from historic levels. And, you know, and that is a problem. And it's an existential problem. But that is only when we have obesity. That is off the charts. Yeah. Again, when my uncle was president, we had about 11% of kids had obesity. Today, 74% of Americans are obese or overweight. And, you know, in Japan, it's 3%. So, you know, and that's because they pay attention to what they're feeding kids in school.
Yeah, the Japanese are very skinny. What do you say to Rosie?
I think it's disgraceful, and I think he is wholly unqualified to be the head of Health and Human Services. I think most of the cabinet picks that Donald Trump has made are part of his vision of a reality show government and not the most qualified people available, especially Robert Kennedy. And I feel he should resign or be released from his position.
Well, you know, there was a wave of anger against me because I announced that we're going to find the cause of autism. This is something that President Trump told me on day one. I want to know what's causing it within a year. And I announced how we're going to do that. We are going to farm out grants to 15 groups, teams of the top scientists in the world. And we're going to look at all of the possible culprits, and we're going to do that within a year. We'll have answers within 6 months. We'll have definitive answers within a year, and we'll know. And then we'll be able to eliminate the exposures. And this kind of tsunami of anger against me for making that announcement was almost incomprehensible to me. I mean, why would people not want to know what the cause of autism is? We know it's an epidemic. The science is very clear. It was about 1 in 10,000 kids in 1970. And there's the biggest epidemiological study in history was done in 1970 in American history, 900,000 kids. And they found all the kids in Wisconsin were tested. There were 60 of them had autism. Today, it's 20,000, and that's the same number.
Wow.
We've gone from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 31, 1 in every 20 boys in this country. In California, it's 1 in 20 kids and 1 in 12 boys. So this is a crisis. This is 20 times worse than COVID-19 in terms of the economic impact, the social impact, the moral impact on our country's capacity to lead the world, to be an exemplary nation. All of that is challenged. To have the vigor and robust population that we need to become an industrial and economic power again.
You know,
we're destroying all of that.
Mr. Secretary,
and we need to find out what the answer is.
You just mentioned COVID-19. We're seeing reports that you're considering removing the COVID vaccine as a mandatory shot for children. And we're also seeing that Fauci doubled his fortune over the last couple of years, right after the pandemic. Are you going to look into how that happened?
Well, in terms of President Trump doesn't believe that anybody should get mandatory vaccines. There's a medical intervention. It has risks. People should make that choice for themselves. The COVID vaccine, the recommendation for children was always dubious. And it was dubious because kids had almost no risk for COVID-19. Certain kids that had very profound morbidities may have a slight risk. Most kids don't. So why are we giving this to tens of millions of kids when the vaccine itself does have profound risk? We've seen huge associations with myocarditis and pericarditis, with strokes, with other injuries, with neurological injuries. And this was clear even in the clinical data that came out of Pfizer. There were actually more deaths. There were about 23% more deaths in the vaccine group than the placebo group. So, we need to ask questions, and we need to consult with parents. We need to give people informed consent, and we shouldn't be making recommendations that are not good for the population.
Chronic disease. America leads the world in chronic diseases, with millions suffering from conditions like heart disease and diabetes. Obesity. Obesity rates in the U.S. have been steadily rising, affecting children and adults alike. Autism. Autism rates have been increasing, with many families seeking better support systems. Placebo. In clinical trials, the placebo effect can sometimes be as powerful as the actual treatment. Culprits. The primary culprits for the rise in chronic diseases include poor diet and lack of exercise. Vigor. Maintaining physical activity is essential for overall vigor and health. Robust. A robust healthcare system is necessary to address the increasing health challenges. Dubious. The safety of some new treatments is still dubious, requiring further investigation. Petroleum-based food dyes. Petroleum-based food dyes. Synthetic chemicals. Synthetic chemicals. Additive. Additive. Substance. Substance. Robert Kennedy's Public Health Department will lead bold reforms in the food and medical industries. The new measures aim to not only remove petroleum-based dyes from food but also to conduct deeper research on childhood autism and vaccine issues. The American people have the right to know and need to be informed about the additives in their food and the safety of vaccines. The ultimate goal of the Trump administration is to help Americans reduce chronic diseases and obesity and make Americans healthy again. Robert Kennedy's Public Health Department will lead bold reforms in the food and medical industries. The new measures aim to not only remove petroleum-based dyes from food but also to conduct deeper research on childhood autism and vaccine issues. The American people have the right to know and need to be informed about the additives in their food and the safety of vaccines. The ultimate goal of the Trump administration is to help Americans reduce chronic diseases and obesity and make Americans healthy again.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.